Hello everyone, this is Jonathan Little for Pokerstrategy.com, and today I'm going to teach you guys how to multi-table. It seems pretty simple, but there are a lot of things you can do to make your multi-tabling go a lot more smoothly and also make it more profitable for you. So, first thing you need to do is make sure you're paying attention to the active table. There are a lot of guys that they'll say they go all in with a hand, and then their opponent calls. They'll sit there and they'll wait and see what the board runs out to see if they win or not. But if you're playing 24 games, you really need to not pay attention to those because they're just going to take your attention away from your other tables. And it takes the computer maybe 3 or 4 seconds to throw out 5 cards, and that's 3 or 4 seconds you could be doing something else. So that's the first thing. Don't focus on the hand once you've acted. Once you've acted, the hands should be basically over in your head. You also need to make your decisions quickly. There are a lot of guys, especially people that transfer from live poker, that kind of like to think in their head about what they're going to do, whereas in reality, most people know it, or at least I know personally what I'm going to do in about an eighth of a second every time it gets to me. What is this? Okay. Anyways, so yeah, make your decisions quickly, and you need to learn to make your decisions quickly. They need to be almost like a subconscious decision. And in order to make your decisions quickly, you need to learn to see what's going on at the table basically instantly. And what I mean by that is, say the action's on you, you don't really need to take your time and look around and see what the blinds are, see what your stack is, and all that type of thing. You need to kind of just know what's going on at the table. And you generate that skill through playing a lot of games and just putting in a lot of hours doing that. So it's something that comes with time, and you need to work your way up to where you can play mini tables and not even really have to think about what's going on too much. And also keep your eyes on the active table. So whenever, say you go all in on the table on the left-hand side of the screen, and now it's up to you on the right-hand side of the screen, you need to pay attention to that one. Don't really focus on the other one. You also need to pay attention to what is going on in the actual game. Don't really be focusing on other things in life. So yeah, focus on poker. And also don't be doing other things like watching TV or talking on AIM or trying to cook dinner or talking to your friends on the phone. Pay attention to your poker game. And you can get away with doing many things whenever you're playing maybe 4 tables. But once you start getting a lot of games up, like 9 or 24, you're gonna have a hard time doing other things. So, that being said, I'm going to hop right into some games and show you guys what I do to multi-table well. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have us registered in 8 $6 sit-and-goes. And I'm doing $6 ones so that I don't really think about the money in the least bit. I'm just going to focus on helping you guys know how to multi-table well. And there are a few ways to go about doing this. I'm going to show you, this is called playing with stacks, first off. You get four tables, and then you're just going to put the other 4 tables right on top of these. And I'm not really a fan of this method of playing, mostly because it will cause misclicks here and there if tables pop up. But I'm going to show you stacks first, as that's probably one of the easier ways to do it if you have a small monitor or you don't have multiple monitors. Also, I wanted to go through the option menu with you guys because this is very important. This is a place where a lot of players lose a lot of equity just by not doing these things. First off, you need to make sure you're mucking your losing hands. And also, you're not showing your winning hands. You don't need to click, yes, show my hand. There's no reason for that. It's just going to slow you down. Also, don't show your whole cards in ring games. That should go without saying. And as you can see, I'm just stacking these tables right on top of each other. You can also take this a little bit farther and only have one table. Like, for example, I could put this one right here and then just stack every other table on top of it. In which case, I would just have a bunch of piles of tables. We have a min-raise under the gun here and a call. I'm just going to go ahead and re-raise the queens and get it in a $6 game. You don't want animation, and I personally don't have any sound, because whenever you play a lot of tables, the constant banging will get on your nerves, or at least it gets on my nerves. You want to display the folded cards. I choose to show the player images. It helps me keep up with the players a little bit better, I think. And a 4-color deck is a must, I think. 4-color deck means, notice how the clubs are green and the diamonds are blue. It'll help you recognize the cards quite a bit better. Here I'm just kind of calling down. You know, this guy definitely could have an ace. If he does have an ace, he's going to get paid off, you know. And I really don't think he has one, though. Notice right there how it took the table away. And whenever you're playing a lot of games, you really don't need to be too concerned with what happens. As you see, this guy was just playing his hand absolutely horrible for really no reason at all. Let's go back to these options. A very important thing here, well, preferred seat. You need to make sure you're sitting at the same table on every game, because it'll help you see your cards better. You know where to look instead of having to look all over the table. And here, advanced multi-table options. These are very important. Let me take care of these hands really quick. Right here we're getting really good odds, but I think folding is probably best. You need to pop up the table whenever an action is required. Like you see how this table just popped up here? If that button was not checked, this table would just stay in the back and sit there for forever. You need single-click table activation, which means normally you have to double-click. You have to click once on the table to make it active. Like I'd have to click here, and then I could click here. Whereas now I can just click on any table and my action. I don't have to double-click on the table to make the action take place. Minimize lobby when opening a table. I'm not really a fan of this. Basically what it means is whenever you open up a table, the lobby will minimize. And I don't really think that's a good thing. And then auto open sit and go lobby. This is kind of a personal preference here. Basically what it means is whenever I open up a table here, it brings up this lobby. And that can be good or bad. I'm going to call here just to try to either get a cheap showdown or maybe peel a club. And you know, really this is a spot where I'm not looking to put too much money in the pot, because I'm usually ahead or have a draw to be ahead, but it's kind of tough to know which one I am. And I'm called twice, and if he bets again, I'm just going to fold here. Because if he bets, he most likely has an ace, and I don't really see any reason for him to bet anything besides an ace. So I'm just going to fold. Also, don't display your VIP status. There's really no reason to do that, because if you're, like say you're Supernova like I am, or Supernova Elite, you don't want to tell your opponents you're good. And if you're a Bronze Star, you don't really want to tell your opponents you're bad either. So there's really no reason to make your opponents think those things. Also, whenever you're playing a lot of tables at a time, you really need to get in the habit of not using the auto buttons, even the auto fold button, because occasionally if you go to click the auto fold button, it will be like right here, there'll be a call behind it, or maybe even a fold behind it, whatever, but it'll be on the other table. And you don't want to accidentally fold on any table. So you need to get out of the habit of using these auto buttons. And you can see how the tables pop up pretty quickly. I'm going to move them all to the middle and show you guys how to play with just one stack. And you know, you can program all of this. I'll show you how to do this too. The reason I like having the lobbies open is I get to know if I'm actually in the game or not. And I think that's kind of important. And as you can see now, the table will just pop up and I'll be able to click right here very quickly. And you can also make these tables big if it'll make it easier for you. But I find the smaller the tables are, not necessarily smaller, but I think this size is pretty optimal because it helps me see what's going on relatively quickly. Right here with sevens, we can just check and try to flop a set, and we do. I think this is a spot to go ahead and lead out because there are many people in the hand, and someone probably has something. And when you lead out in spots like that, people aren't really going to give you too much credit. Whenever you are playing with stacks like this, you have to be careful to not get in the habit of just clicking fold over and over and over, because it's very easy to do. And as you know, the sevens over here, I don't really know what happened, but I know my bet is usually good, and that's all I really care about. You know, I'm not too concerned with whether or not I'm not too concerned with what actually happened in the hand. That's the thing. You have to get out of the habit of caring what happens in your hands. And to a lot of people, that's not really fun for them, I guess. They like to see what happens, like to get some sort of gratification. So anyways, I don't think this is the best way of doing it either. I think either tiling your tables or cascading your tables is probably best. So I'm going to show you now cascading your tables. You can just click right here and click Cascade. And as you can see, it brings all the tables up just like this. And now the tables, they'll still pop up automatically because of that that advanced multi-table option. And now, like say I wanted to go all in on this table, I could actually bring it over here and look at it and see what's going on it whenever the action's happening. And then I can just go back to and click Cascade once again. And it'll cascade my tables. And also, see, this table right here is blinking. That lets me know that the action's on me. You can call or raise here. Raise here. Since it's a small stake game, I'm going to go ahead and raise and get in with it. People tend to get it in a lot lighter in small stakes games, so you can't really be sad getting it in with ace king. And I think this is definitely the best way for playing like 24 games on a laptop, especially. And I play on my laptop basically all the time now. Just because I'm traveling so often, it's kind of silly to play on the desktop. Like right here, if I wanted to pay attention to this table, I could bring it over here to the side and pay attention to it. Right here I got re-raise, and I don't really think there's any other play in the $6 game than to push. So for this reason, I think tiling your table, or cascading your tables like this is a very good thing to do, especially if you are going to play a lot more games. Then you can tile your tables. Right here, if I click tile, notice it makes these tables extraordinarily small, right? Like I'm sure you guys probably can't see what's going on in the least bit. And really, honestly, I can't hardly see chip stacks, and I'm looking right in front of the table. So what I've figured out I can do is I have a custom layout for 9. And notice that if I have 9 tables up, you can see the chip stacks significantly better. And you know, this is just all around good. And what you do is you put your tables like this, exactly the way you want them, in order to make a custom layout, and then go click on Save Custom Layout, and it will ask you to name it. And I already have it named 9, so I'm not too concerned with it. And it will save the layout just like this. And I think this is perfect for me because I can see all the chip stacks just fine, and you know, I have no problems playing 9 tables like this. However, once you start getting up to 24, I have a 24 table layout, which is basically just a cascaded layout where they're all over the screen. As you can see, the lowest one will be, I think, maybe one table farther down than this. So that's how I cascade them. Whenever I play 24, I just have them cascaded all the way down. So the whole table is covered. This is a spot where you can raise or call. I think folding's out of the question. I think calling's probably best, though, just to try to peel your card to make a straight. So I'm going to go back and cascade these to being regular, like regular cascaded, so they're a little bit tighter. Basically, you don't want to have to move your mouse too incredibly much. And because, you know, if you're moving your mouse all over the table like this, you're gonna make mistakes, number one, because you're moving farther. And also, you're going to get tired a lot quicker. So in general, the closer you can keep your mouse to your games, I think the better. Also notice in this, well, let's talk about this ace-queen hand real quick. I think the only play is to really call and try to flop something. notice that whenever you're actually playing these games, it's pretty tough to edit your settings. So make sure you have your settings exactly the way you want them before you go to play. Let's see what I'm doing. Choose theme. Let's talk about these themes. Notice that I use this table with the black theme that's pretty simple. It's actually called Hyper Simple Theme. And I think that's very good. Notice they have all these other themes, though. Like they have a beach and the default Poker Stars ones. So, they have all kinds of settings. But anyways, I found that the Hyper Simple theme works best for me. There are also many programs that claim to help you multi-table better and have more information, like, say, Hold'em Manager, which I think is pretty much a good version of Poker Tracker. And while I think those programs are very good for cash games, I don't really think they're great for sit and goes because people's statistics change dramatically based on their stack size and also the level that they're in. So I don't think those are really that great for sit and goes. And what those do is they just put statistics underneath your opponent's name, and it'll tell you about their game and their stats. It'll help you generate a better read on your opponents. But really, if you're playing 24 games, you're not going to have that much time to sit there and think about your opponents. So what I do, especially when I'm playing small stakes games, well, actually I never really play small stakes games, but if you're going to play small stakes games, just kind of assume all your opponents are bad. Because they are. There's a reason they're playing $6 games. And there will be a few regulars. Like I noticed this Warsaw guy is in quite a few of my games. He's on this one as well. He's on this one. So this guy's probably 24 tabling these games. And that's fine. I'm not too concerned with it. Right here with 9-7 suited, I'm going to go ahead and raise. Although I think it's close. So I'm going to check with the ace-jack here, because if I raise and get re-raised, it's not really a great spot. I'm going to go ahead and just check the turn and try to check it down. I was going to say, if my opponent bets small, I'll probably call here. And right here, I raised with the 9-7 and made a continuation bet, which I'm not really too excited about because it did come ace-XX, but he folded, so that's okay. Then over here with the ace-jack, he had the ace-3 and owned us. Right here, notice our stacks are fairly deep here, so I have to proceed with caution. I'm going to check behind on the ace-XX flop, and if he checks again, I'm going to bet. I was going to bet basically any turn. Now that I have the spade, I have the second nuts, which we can be happy about putting a lot of money in with. I think I'm going to actually overshove here to try to get a call from a weaker hand. And as you can see, he called me with ace-10, which I think is a horrible call by him. And I think the overbet, it may be induced. I mean, I'm not sure if he had any intention of folding ace-10 no matter what I bet. But it was pretty clear to me he didn't have the king of spades, so pushing is really the only play right there, I think. Because if he has a spade, he's probably not going to give me too much credit for a spade. Because of that, he's going to be a little bit more prone to pay me off. And, there's really no reason I couldn't have the king of spades there, but apparently he put me on nothing and called off with a absolute bluff catcher. The fifth spade on the river was actually a very good card for me because it allowed me to represent that I'm just trying to pick up the pot. Also, I want to talk about typing in your bet sizes. There's a program out there called AutoHotkey. Say it again, AutoHotkey, A-U-T-O-H-O-T-K-E-Y. And what it does is it allows you to use... Actually, this program does all kinds of stuff. It allows you to use, like, say, a right click will make it 2.5 big blinds, or maybe clicking, like, F1 on your keyboard will make it 2.5 big blinds. It also has programs out there that can register you for the sit and goes themselves, which is one of the hardest parts of actually playing a lot of sit and goes, is registering for them. And like right here, I can just maybe right click or whatever I want to do, and it will type in 125 for me, or it'll type in 250, whatever I want it to do. And I definitely suggest anyone that plays a lot of tables to look into that. There's probably some videos online about that kind of thing. You search for them. Right here we're getting okay odds against a relatively short stack, so I'm going to go ahead and call here. And we have a coin flip, so it's not too incredibly bad. Actually, it's good, because if I know he's pushing with coin flip type hands, then I have a pretty easy call. Obviously, tens is going to be in everyone's range right there, so we don't really know if that was a good call or not. I think it's close. Given my stack size, though, and that I only need to win 40% of the time, I think I'm going to win something like 40% of the time. And I think that makes it good enough to call. And I want to say, if we had, like, say, 24 tables up, we'd be going a lot quicker, and I really wouldn't be able to talk about anything, which is the reason I chose to play only 8 games. Whenever you're playing a lot of games, you don't really need to be obsessing over how you're doing. Because if you're constantly worried, like, oh man, I'm down a buy-in, or I just got stacked on this table, if you're thinking about that kind of thing, you're going to cost yourself money, and you're going to cost yourself time, because you're going to be devoting your thoughts to other things, and you're just going to make bad plays. So make sure you're actually focusing on your games, and not really doing anything out of line, and not going on tilt. I think it's a lot easier to not go on tilt when you actually don't know what's going on in your games. Right here with fours, this is really close. I think it's close between pushing and calling. Folding really isn't out of line. I think I'm just going to call, though, because people at low stakes games love to limp with hands like aces, especially under the gun. So because of that, I'm going to go with the passive route and just call and hope to flop a set or a good flop. Right here with the ace-4, I'm going to kind of just go into check call-down mode and hope my opponent bluffs off at me. This is the same guy that just had the tens against us. I'm just going to call here, although I'm very confident I'm ahead. I just want to let my opponent bluff off at it, although I'm not really sure I'm going to get too much action, because he min bet the turn, which is basically a joke. So he had a king. And notice that since I pulled these tables out, and now I'm going to go back to, I want to go back to the main cascade, I can just go back to play cascade, and there they are, ready to go again. Right here with nines, we have a very standard push. I think this is probably okay with the king 10. Let's bring this one over here. I think this is close with the 10-9 as well. I'm going to go ahead and push it. Although I do think it's close, rather close. As you can see, our opponent here folded, so he probably just doesn't really know what he's doing if he's raising the 3x and folding. Well, I lost this tournament with something. And see, like, right there, if I was playing for real, like a real standard session, I wouldn't even look at this table. I would just close it, move on to the next game. Like, I don't even know what I pushed here. So I pushed nines and got unlucky. You know, what are you going to do? It's a spot where you can't really do anything, and you're just going to lose. So, whenever I get down to 6 tables, I'm going to show you guys the tiled 6-table version, which is, I guess I can go ahead and show the tiled 6-table version. It's the exact same thing as my custom layout, except for, say, this table will be here, and these tables will be moved down a bit to about right here, so they don't overlap. Basically, all tiling does is make the tables as big as possible without overlap. Right here with Jack 9, I think it's close, but I'm going to go ahead and fold. Close between raising and folding. Not pushing, because we have too many chips. So I'm going to leave it like this for a little while. And, personally for me, playing like 8 tables or 7 tables like this is not stressful in the least bit. But once I get up to the 24 tables, it gets a little tough for me, probably because I just don't have too incredibly much experience at it. So I think you should start with whatever you normally play. Like, say you normally play 4 games. Add in a 5th game and play a 5th game for a day. And then if that goes well, add in a 6th game. And so forth. Every day or either every week, whatever you think is okay with you. Add in another table and try to move up. I'm going to check behind here and then bet the turn if he checks to me. once again. This is a great card to bluff on the turn, because that's the type of... I would check behind a lot of the time whenever I actually had a jack. Like, what can I have here that this guy can beat now, besides... I mean, there's not much he can have there, is what I'm saying. Right here we get min re-raised. It's a really bad spot, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and get it in, and not be too sad about it. Right here with the 8s, I raised, and this guy shoved into me for the whole pile. I think I'm going to fold here. I think he most likely has something like a 9 that he just doesn't know how to play. So I think I am behind. Right there with the 9s, just a standard spot where you're just going to go broke. Not really much you can do there. And in spots like that where you are just going to go broke, don't beat yourself up over them, especially when you're playing a lot of games, because they're going to come up over and over and over again, those spots are. And the great thing about playing a lot of tables is that you can get through variants like that, and it'd be fine. Also notice you may want to take a note on this guy saying that he can basically min re-raise with hands like kings, which is pretty much the worst way to play them, because you really only get action if your opponent has a monster. And, you know, take notes on that kind of thing, because it's very important. And whenever you open up a table, try to read your notes on your opponents and think about what they may mean and how you can use them. Right here with the Jack 7, I think it's a little bit too close to push. I think we're going to get called a lot if I do push there. Definitely going to push this 7-4 if they fold to me, and also this 7-4 if they fold to me. This min raise right here I think is probably a decent hand, so I'm just going to get out of the way. So I get to push with two 7-4s, which I'm never really a fan of pushing with nothing, but in sit and goes, if you're going to play sit and goes, you better get used to pushing with nothing, because that's pretty much the whole game. People that push with nothing win, and people that don't push with nothing lose. And as you can see, whenever you're playing with the tables tiled like this, you're going to have to pay a bit more attention to the games, because they're not going to pop up quite as dramatically as they do if you have them tiled or stacked. There's also one other thing that you should think about when it comes to sit and goes, and that's when do you load up more games? And personally, I don't really have a problem. Right here with 2s, I think it's a fold is close though. I don't really have a problem loading up games as soon as I bust from one. So what I would normally do is, say I wanted to play 9 games, right? As soon as I bust from that other game that I just had, I would instantly load up another one, and I just keep playing. The only problem with that is that it creates for spots where the blind levels are very different in different games. And because of that, you're going to find yourself in tricky spots if you're not paying really close attention, because you'll be at, say, 75-150 here, but only 15-30 on another table. Oh, see, I just misclicked there. That's one of the things you can run into, is that you're not paying attention to stacks quite as well as you should be. This guy only pushed for 400 chips, and I definitely would have called him if I knew his stack size. So, almost misclicked bad there, but got saved. That goes back to making sure you're paying very good attention. Right, we're 7-8 under the gun. I think you can push a decent amount of hands under the gun, just because people do give them a bit too much respect. Right there with the A6, we're on the bubble here, so I don't really want to go too nuts re-pushing over the big stack. And as you can see with 6 tables here, they tile nice and pretty. And I hope you guys can see these chip stacks. If not, guess I'm kind of wasted a video, but I'm pretty sure you guys can see these. Right here I raised to 400 on the top right-hand table, and I think it looks a little bit like a steal, so I think I have to call the push. Although I'm not really happy about it. And he has jacks, which is a little bit unfortunate, but, you know, one of those what can you do spots. just going to check with the Queen Jack here and hopefully flop something. And if I don't flop something, hopefully I can take it away at some point. But he's not going to let me. But also those auto hotkey programs that can like instantly push your stack in by clicking a button, and it's just a really great program for stuff like that. I've had a few problems with it. Stars did something with their programming a while back, and it screwed up my auto hotkey. So we lose a coin flip there, and we're just losing every flip, but it happens. I'm a little surprised the Warsaw guy didn't push there. That's a very standard push spot. Considering this guy's a regular, I'm a little surprised about that. Yeah, they changed the program a while back, and it messed up a lot of the programs I was using, and then it caused a bunch of tables to freeze. So I suggest you always, whenever you try a new program, always give it a run-through first to see if to make sure the program works fine. Otherwise, you may end up, all your games may crash or something. Right here I push with fours, again, another very standard spot, and it looks like I'm going to lose. So, obviously we're going to get beat up in the video, but it's okay. I want to make it clear that you should not be playing 1 or 2 or 3 tables at a time. You need to be playing a lot of tables when you're playing poker, or when you're playing sit and goes at least. Right here we got owned nicely. Maybe I'll get lucky. And I don't. And right here we get it in really good. And I hold up, so that's good. Notice you can also tile the tables, and it'll make them very large, although there's really no reason to want your tables this big. Because this goes back to the thing of having to move your mouse around too much, and your eyes have to constantly move back and forth, and you don't really want that. So we got in the money in 2 games out of 8, which is obviously not good, but it's not too horrible either. I mean, we ran into some tough spots in some of the games, so can't really be too worried about that kind of thing. That goes back to, you can't really be too results-oriented, and you're going to get to play a lot of games. You're going to go through, you're going to have big upswings and big downswings, and hopefully, at the end of all of it, you're ahead. Also, I want to point out that even though I only got in the money twice, it's not like this is going to be a huge losing session, because if I take a first and a second, I break even. So, despite running a little bit bad on the other tables, this isn't really that bad. Notice this guy limps and bets basically every time, so we're going to have to put a stop to that. I'm just going to go ahead and shove with the 6s. I think he's going to fold a huge range, and I don't really want to raise to, say, 800, then get outplayed post-flop. I tend to raise a little bit larger out of the blinds, so about 3 times the blind out of the blinds. Notice this guy called, I think this guy's just one of these types of players that try to constantly outplay people, and it kind of makes me be in a rough situation because I have a stack that I can't really stand to get played back at too much, especially if I have nothing. So you have to be careful against opponents like that, deep in a sit and go, because they will wreck you sometimes. So, if you guys have any questions or comments about this video, please let me know, because I want to give you guys some good instructional information. And if you want, I guess just let me know what you want in terms of future videos for these more instructional type videos versus actual poker playing videos. I think I'm going to go ahead and push here. This guy tends to raise a lot from the blinds. He did give us a walk earlier, which I thought was pretty bad, but he seems to raise a decent amount, so I'm going to go ahead and just push into him with a pretty wide range. This is kind of an interesting spot because I have a middle pair and I have this guy leading into me. And if If I call, I think I'm going to get pushed a lot, so I think folding is really the only play. Well, they both folded, and that's a little bit unfortunate. Notice that if they fold to me, I'm going to be pushing here basically every time into this 10 big blind stack. Right here, we're getting very good odds to call, but if I call, I open the door for this chase to win guy to push. And the last thing I want to do is to induce this guy to push whenever I have a very weak hand. I really hate the limp call by Crypto here. I think it's pretty bad. However, I was rooting for him to win, because if he wins, we get closer to winning ourselves. Also notice the blinds are still very low. They're only 100, 200 with the ante. And that generally means people just are busting really quick. Right here with sixes, even though this guy has raised a lot, I think he is going to look me up eventually. Despite that, I think I have to push with sixes. They're just a little bit too strong. I'm going to go ahead and bet here. It's not really a value bet, it's not really a bluff. It's more like a protection bet, because I don't really want him to... I don't want to check behind and have him win with a hand that just has a random bad flub in it. I'm going to raise here, and this opponent seems to be fairly prone to pushing, I think. So I'm going to go... I was raising there with full intention of calling his push if he did push. And one other good thing about multi-tabling is that it uses your time very well. Like, say you sit down and play 2 tables for an hour, whereas you could have been playing 6 or 8. You could have played a lot more hands and made a lot more money on average. And you want to make as much money as you can. So I suggest you play as many tables as you can, especially if you're grinding up a bankroll. That's another interesting thing to talk about, is that whenever you're playing a lot of tables, you're not really focusing on getting better at the actual technical aspects of poker. You're just kind of multi-tabling better and grinding out money. And while grinding out money is very good, I'm not against grinding out money. I think you do need to make sure that you are spending time on actually getting better at the game and paying attention to your opponents. Because poker at any sort of high level is more so about the people than the technical aspects of the game. And you can't really play like a robot and expect to win. And I think a lot of guys, or at least I know I did, I played like a robot whenever I first started. And I played like a robot up until I moved over to PokerStars a few years ago and was forced into actually learning how to play well, because the games were much tougher. And I think it made me a better poker player, and obviously you want to be as good of a poker player as you can. If this is the Warsaw guy raises again, I think I still have to push. I'm not really a fan of it. But, he raises the button like 100%, so eventually he is going to call us in this spot, and we are going to go broker to him, but until then, I'm just going to keep pounding away on him. I'm going to go ahead and raise here with the 9-7. Those are both pretty deep, but I essentially have the nuts in the spot. And if I am beat, it's one of those, like, so be it spots. I could check or bet here. If I bet and get pushed on him in a really rough spot, and obviously I'll have to call, but I think I'm going to check and call basically any river besides this one. Actually, I'm still going to have to call for 400, I think. This is obviously the worst river in the deck. I don't really beat anything anymore. But I think this is close. Even with this, it still may be a fold. If this opponent had much... I don't know. I think I have to call here regardless. I think it's close, but I am going to be shown the nuts sometimes. I noticed he called our flop bet with nothing, so can't be too sad about that. He floated with a gut shot out of position. Right here I'm going to call and then call if this guy pushes. Assuming Crypto doesn't. Crypto just called and folded. That is horrific. Horrifically bad. Might be the worst play I've seen all day, but I mean, I guess he did just float the flop with a gut shot, so it's not like the guy's good. You always need to be very conscious of your opponent's actual skill level. Usually they're pretty bad, especially at $5 games. You know, there's a reason these guys are playing $5 games. It's either because they're new and they're learning, or it's because they're bad. And either way, they're probably not great opponents to start off with. Right here, the 5-4 is a little bit close, but I think I'm still just going to go ahead and shove it. Right here with the ace-9, I'm definitely getting it in. Especially since Crypto's shown he can limp fold. I mean, he did limp call earlier with ace-2, but again, I'm not too scared if he calls me with ace-2 and I have ace-9. So, that's a pretty good spot to go ahead and push. Right here with ace-3, I'm going to go ahead and fold, but you really just don't want to be calling pushes too often with hands like ace-x and, say, king-x, because when you're either way ahead, I mean, you're either slightly ahead or you're way behind, and that's never a good spot to be in. I'm going to check here with a 6-5 and hopefully let my opponent bluff off at it now that I got the nuts. I'm going to min bet, hopefully induce action, but it's going to be tough to get too much action out of this opponent. Right here I'm going to bet 800, and I'm going to push the river. The river may appear to be a little bit big of a bet, but I'm going to have 2,000 left into a 3,000 pot, so it's going to be a pretty standard bet. You always want to make sure you're setting the pot up to where you can push the river if you have the nuts. Got a standard push with 7-8, and our opponent calls us with king-9, so not much we can do here. He made a standard call, and I made it a standard push. This is a kind of weird min raise from this opponent. We haven't really seen this yet. I think I'm going to go ahead and push anyways. And whenever you see this, you need to take a note on it, because stuff like that is very valuable to know. This opponent hasn't min raised yet either, but I think queen-9 is just a little bit too good to fold when I'm down to 7 big blinds. So we got another coin flip type hand. Hopefully we'll win one of them. But doesn't look like it's going to be. So, we lost two hands on there, and that's pretty much it. You lose 2 hands, you're going to lose a sit and go. And that's the ugly aspect of the game is just sometimes you can't do anything to win. You're just going to lose. And whenever you get kind of set up in those spots, don't fault yourself, and don't be too sad. Notice divorce I was pushing a ton. I kind of wish I called with my ace-3 earlier. If I've been folding a lot, I could occasionally push with that 9-2 there, just because my opponent's range is going to be a bit tighter. But really, again, at low-stakes games, especially if I know a guy's multi-tabling, I can't be too scared to call off with. I gotta be careful pushing that wide of a range, because they will look me up quite often. So anyway, I made a call with 3s, which I think is a little close, but against this opponent, it's extraordinarily standard. And he had the 8s, but it's one of those spots where the guy's pushing 100% of his range, and 3s are just good enough to be ahead of 100% of his range. Because he has me pushing hands like ace-2 and such. Right here with the 9-6, we were getting good odds and we had 2 big blinds, so not too much to talk about there. But we got lucky, which is always good. You always want to get lucky. Right here with the 8-6 suited, it's kind of close because this opponent isn't much shorter than us, or isn't much bigger than us. However, we're going to take the blinds again next hand, then we're going to be down to nothing again, so I think we kind of have to push and hope we get some folds. But we didn't, and we're out. So, not a great session, but I think we played the tables pretty well. I did have that one slight misclick, but all in all, I think it was a pretty good video. I wish I would have won some hands, but again, you're not going to win hands every session, and that's one of the reasons you need to play a lot of tables, because it'll get you through those rough patches of variance much quicker than playing one table at a time. So, thank you very much for watching, and let me know if you have any comments or suggestions.